Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Michaela Peters. Today what I'm going to try doing is seeing if I can get through this entire recording without something malfunctioning. I just deleted a bunch of stuff from my computer and I'm hoping that memory problem stops happening. I'm a little bit too lazy to figure out an alternative because I hate editing my videos, so there's that. But what I want to do today is actually go over the comments from this last video where I, talked a little bit about Finland versus U.S. incomes and immigration to Finland, and we're going to start with that now. And I just want to respond to some of the comments here and share some more knowledge that I have because I think maybe it would be interesting. Okay. So, I do get a lot of things about, people having issues with politics in the U.S. I remember growing up and there being a sign across the street that said, America, love it or leave it. And I had a really big problem with the sign because I'm like, it's not really that easy. Just because you want to leave the country you live in doesn't mean it's always the easiest thing. Just like yesterday, I was having a conversation with somebody where it's like, just because you want to leave an abusive relationship doesn't mean it's an easy thing to do. These are unfortunate realities of being a human. So, yeah, the fake nails, no, I like my fake nails. I'm not even I don't even do my hair or wear makeup half the time, but the fake nails are forever to stay, except for right now, and maybe I'll get into why later. But anyway, yes, changing circumstances is a lot of work, and sometimes it's not even possible. I don't even know what to say about this comment here because I don't like this topic, so we're going to skip that. Okay, some people can settle without any problems if they have Finnish ancestry. Okay, yeah, so let's talk about that because yes, this is something that you see very commonly, like if you have a Finnish grandparent or if you have a Finnish parent or whatever, and the people take advantage of that and they come to Finland to study for free. I think that's wonderful. I think that's great. I think that's cool. I would love to give that to my kid, even though I'm not Finnish. But yeah, the whole getting a passport as an American without that kind of situation is actually pretty difficult. What about Canada? I'll tell you one thing I know about Canada is that their housing market is even more screwed up than the US is currently. And since the housing market has been the bane of my existence for pretty much the entire existence of this channel, I don't have a particularly good feeling about Canada. Also, you have to keep in mind that Canada is like an American version of Finland. Like, what did I just say? Yes, because it is cold there and it is desolate, but it's like that, but with cars everywhere. Terrible. That's the one thing I love about not being in the US. Okay, the rent increase is tied to the index. I think that's interesting. I didn't know that. I really have nothing to say to these ones because at this point they are just noise to me. Okay, so this is a good question. What if you just got rich, like in the millions, versus entrepreneurship where you make a lot of money? I don't know how much this person knows about how taxes work, but usually being rich means you have pretty high taxes, so that's a separate issue. But anyway, the thing I told you about before is, wait, what? The thing I told you about before is really big, but the guy told me I need to get customers. So if you just came into a lot of money, like say in the millions, could you just live there, or do you need an actual business making money? All right, something you need to keep in mind about making money. Money is power, okay? I hate to say that. This is why people want money, because they think it's going to give them power. A lot of times it does. It also gives you a headache, don't get me wrong, but money is a pretty useful tool. We're going to look at it that way. So yes, keep in mind that if you had a lot of money, you could just come to Finland and buy a business. You could walk into a random store and be like, you know what, sir, I'd like to buy your business. I'm going to take it over. And if you gave this guy a pretty good offer, he'd probably be like, okay, sounds good. I'll do it. So at that point, you do have a business. I'd actually heard of somebody who was a financial advisor, had a wealthy client who really liked Finland, and pretty much did something like this, was like, oh, I'm just going to go have a business in Finland. And that's how she was essentially able to get her residence permit or whatever she has. I've heard a lot about how getting a permanent residence permit is possible if you have a Finnish spouse. That would be cool. Most people are not going to marry people just for that kind of thing, and I'm not advocating for that either, but I'm saying that is something that I'm aware of. Okay, so yes, if you had a lot of money, that would be cool and that would be useful, but this is getting into the what if game, and I'm trying to approach this from the not what if game. I'm trying to approach this from a more realistic baseline level perspective of somebody who's coming here and trying to, immigrate. I liked this comment a lot. Yeah, it is a very nuanced breakdown, and it is a good point that even for well-educated people, it can be challenging. One recent example I keep talking about is I had a Finnish friend who actually had a very hard time getting a job even in Finland, despite the fact that, he had a pretty robust, I'd say both work and educational history behind him. So these are interesting statistics. I didn't know about any of these. Residence permits are for work or studies a lot of times. Yes, that's correct. Family reunification was the largest category. Fascinating. Work-based immigration dipped, but came mostly from Thailand and the Philippines. Yeah, so that's a thing. I had met somebody who actually came on a work permit and was working up in like Rovaniemi during the winter or something, and then eventually became a student. So that's cool, and that's a good idea. That might also be good because if you're just working and keeping your expenses really low, you might be able to save up some money, which would then help you get into studying. I mean, people do that in the U.S. too when they immigrate. Very interesting that the top student migration is now coming from Bangladesh. I just thought that was very interesting. Asylum applications stayed low only this minute. Okay, I don't know how those asylum type of cases work. That sounds more like war. The ones I know of are more related to like religious asylum, so I can't comment on this. I don't know. Okay. Now, anchor children, interesting. I feel like I did talk about that a little bit, at least with, people who have that connection, right? Or, yeah, like have Finnish people in their family. Yeah, that's cool. Refugee families. So I don't know about all this. This is just something I've not heard of. I've not talked to anybody about, and I have not done my own research on. Right. There are loopholes to everything, and you're basically just planning or relying on the good nature of people that they're not going to abuse systems, but people are corrupt and do abuse systems, so I don't know what to say to this, to be honest. Like, it's just the nature of humans. Yes, it is tough. It is painful. It takes work. Yeah. So I honestly, what I'd say with this comment is just like being an immigrant is hard, and you should try to have some empathy for immigrants, and they have different problems than you. That's all. Like I do have a lot of very helpful, interesting conversations with international people because obviously we have different challenges that like Finnish people with citizenship don't have. So yeah. I said this. Yeah, you definitely don't get it by marrying a Finn. You get permanent residence. Those are not the same thing. So, interesting. Yeah. Income. All right. I didn't know that part about it, but yeah. And then, yes, you need to pass the Uki testi in order to be able to become a citizen, which is my biggest problem right now. So, yes. I mean, this was interesting because, yeah, retiring is something I'm afraid of, because money. Yeah, so, I mean, I think this is good because, Finland's system is so well put together, and yes, people don't want people coming in and abusing it, and Finnish people tend to have a lot of trust towards each other and towards the entire system. So this is kind of where immigrants get a bad rep if they are trying to come in and abuse the system, and that's kind of what contributes, I think, towards this issue of xenophobia that is seen pretty often in Finland. So what did I say here? Right. Okay. So now going back to some more commentary from myself, one of the things to keep in mind is like different European countries work differently. Like I'm aware that the Netherlands has a wealth tax where you will be taxed on how much money is actually sitting in your bank account. So I had heard of an instance where somebody's parents bought a house that was very expensive because that was somehow cheaper and more tax advantage than letting the money sit in the bank account and get taxed. Now, in reality, I don't know how many super wealthy people just let money sit in their bank account. Great question, because that's probably not really something that happens in the U.S. They're usually tied up in a lot of different things like mutual funds, life insurance, retirement accounts. I don't really have a full understanding of how that works in Europe. I did talk to somebody, and I think I mentioned this already yesterday or the day before or whatever, about how life insurance policies are pretty frowned upon in Finland at least. I recently been coming to understand that life insurance policies are actually a lot more advantageous even than like 401ks and some other types of financial instruments in the US. But I could get into a separate discussion about that because that's more so geared towards an American audience and less so towards a European audience because I'm not really super familiar on how life insurance works in Europe. I would like to become more aware of that. Maybe that will continue to be my next autistic special interest. But anyway, yeah, I'm not really sure what more to add to this. I think these are all interesting comments, and I think it is an interesting discussion around the whole immigration problem and, finding a job and that being really difficult and kind of this universal challenging experience that a lot of the people who come to Finland after graduation are trying to stay here are facing. So, this is kind of why I've come up with trying to do my own business kind of thing. I think that, I recently talked to another friend who had started doing something similar, and I was really, impressed with that. I told him I would actually start advertising his product on here, so if anybody's interested in what that is, let me know, and I will start doing that, because he's selling supplements in Finland, which I thought was really cool. So as for my Finnish audience, if you want to support my friend, you could do that, but I need to go find his website and all that. It's a type of supplement with like, oh, what even is it? Let me not talk about it unless there's interest, because I did not get trained for advertising for this, but I thought it'd be cool. I was like, I'll do a paid partnership with you. Yeah, so I think that's going to be everything today. This is like the follow-up on immigration to Finland, responses to immigration to Finland. And then one of the other topics I want to start delving into, and this one is going to be a little bit personal, but also interesting, is comparing different healthcare experiences that I've had in Finland to the US. But that's going to require a lot more of a, obviously talking about my health background, which can be a sensitive subject. So I'd kind of like to also get a gauge for how interesting that would be towards my audience. So you can let me know those things in the comments below. Other than that, thank you for your continued support of this channel. I'm hoping at some point it will start growing again, because we've kind of stagnated here, but now that I have more creative energy because I'm in Finland again, I'm really hoping that will be the case. Anyway, that's everything that I have for today, and hopefully this was interesting, and until next time, bye.